my name is Abby Ealer and welcome to the Sailing Show, which is hosted now by the Magenta Project. The Magenta Project was set up following the conclusion of Team SCA, the all-female sailing team who competed in the 2014-15 Volvo Ocean Race, with the objective of advancing women in professional sailing by positively promoting, sharing knowledge and creating pathways. I'm joined on the show today by Britain's Annie Lush, an Olympic and round-the-world sailor, and from New Zealand, Jo Aller, a gold and silver Olympic medalist in the 470 class. Welcome to you both. You're both in Miami this week, so I wanted to first of all ask you what you're there for, and perhaps you can just explain a bit about the M32 boat and the events. For those of us outside, it's just perhaps a little hard to differentiate between the World Match Race Sailing Tour and the qualifier events and so forth. So Annie, perhaps you could just give us a little bit of background.
Sure. Well, the World Match Racing Tour for the first time last year changed into being in these M32 catamarans, which are 32 feet catamarans. Formerly, the tour has been running for 22 years and we've been racing it in keelboats, all different kinds of keelboats. So it's a new format. And so to try and to encourage new teams onto the tour and give them an opportunity, we have the World Match Racing Tour Championship events at the top of the sort of pyramid, and they culminate in a World Championship. And there's 20 teams in each of those events. But to get into those events, you can either have a tour card, which automatically qualifies you, and that's because you've performed previously. Or if you're a new team, then you've got an opportunity of getting through to these championship events through qualifying events. And that's what Jo and I have been here doing, a qualifying event for two of the tour championship events.
And Jo, your background is in Olympic sailing and you've returned from Rio last year. What's led you into the M32?
Yeah, I guess for me, I've been, purely in the Olympic space and sort of looking for opportunities outside of that. And basically, I was lucky enough to go do some sailing with the Magenta Project in Valencia a few months ago. And that was sort of my introduction to the M32. And just really loved the experience, sort of loved being able to sail with these girls from all over the world and really advance sort of my skills and keep learning. And so the M32 for me is just, a new challenge and a great sort of stepping stone, I think, in professional sailing and sort of in finding new opportunities which haven't really been presented before.
Your crew that you've brought together, how have they come about or where have you brought them in from?
So I guess I wanted to give the opportunity to some of the young Kiwi girls to do some different sailing and to get into some different boats. And so I've sort of brought three of New Zealand's young female sailors, Alex and Molly, who sail the 49 FX, who won silver in Rio, and Liv Mackay, who's a NACRA sailor and also sailed in the Red Bull foiling generation and won that last year. So it was sort of a way to bring in some sailors who they're great yachties, but they haven't really been able to do things outside of the Olympic sailing so far. And then, of course, lucky enough to have Annie Lush bringing some experience because, none of us have really sailed the boat. So, having Annie here has been amazing.
Great. And now you've just completed the qualifier event this weekend. What have you taken away from that, or how did the event go for you?
Yeah, I guess the event was really jumping in the deep end. I don't think I was quite aware of what it would be like. I mean, I've sailed the boat for maybe a week before and not always in that helming position. I don't have a match racing background. And so there was a lot to learn. Just firstly for the whole team, how we get the boat around the course, how we do the manoeuvring, the boat handling, the crew work, and then adding in the fact that it is match racing. It's boat on boat and all those skills that go along with that. It was really jumping in the deep end, and I think we were really happy that from the first day to the last day, like we made such big jumps in performance and ability to actually compete with the other boats. So it's a first step, and I guess we just want to keep taking it forward and keep growing.
Annie, recently in Miami, you hosted a training clinic specifically for women in the M32. Hopefully, this has brought women into the series, and I understand there may be people that have now had the opportunity to join these qualifiers from that camp. Are there plans to host more training camp in the future?
Yeah, we have run this format once in Sweden and once in Miami now, with about 20 participants using two M32s, and over a couple of days. The last one in Miami was really positive, and I think from that we saw quite a lot of girls then going to get their license, which is something you need to race on the World Tour in these boats. You have to get a kind of a qualification, and it takes a bit of time and financial investment to do it. But the great thing was quite a lot of the girls have now done that, so showing that they're wanting to carry on. So we're hoping to know another one at the beginning of this summer in Sweden once it's warm enough, because we're getting a lot of requests for it, which is great, because I think a lot of people can see that this boat is a really good platform and a really good start to get into sort of high performance catamarans, which now is where the America's Cup is, where the Youth America's Cup is.
Jo, I was going to ask you, how important are these women-specific training opportunities? We could say that gender is irrelevant when it comes to these boats or to just becoming a professional sailor. But do you think it is important to host these women-specific events?
Yeah, I mean, this was my introduction, was sort of in Valencia, was with the Magenta project, and just getting girls from all over the world together is so different to what you do in Olympic sailing. And sort of giving that opportunity for girls to actually start sailing the boats, because, I mean, yes, there is the occasional team on the circuit who do take sort of one girl as their fifth member of the team, but there are not many spots for girls to sort of get into it and start doing it. And so I think by opening up just to women to get into it, I think you need that. It's getting those numbers and building that sort of base so that you can build teams out of girls who've had a bit of experience, and you have something going forward.
Annie, if we step away from the M32 and talk about what other opportunities are available for women and girls to try and get that move into professional sailing, are there any other projects that the Magenta team have going on that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, well, I think following on the same lines as the M32, then of course foiling is the big new thing that everyone's into, and I think really important again that the girls are getting out there and learning how to do that, because that seems to be the future. So we have sort of got a partnership with Foiling Week, which is from the 5th to 9th of July in Lake Garda, and they've given us a day which will be a Magenta day, specifically targeted at making sure that girls can get out on these different types of foiling boats and have a go and learn in a sort of coached environment. And there'll be a few more of those as the year goes on, which, all being well, we'll continue to work with them and hopefully keep providing some opportunities through the Foiling Week format. And then, of course, it's not all about high performance catamarans. So we've been lent an Etchells for this season, and we've just had our first weekend taking out some young academy girls from the UK in the Etchells, and we hope to grow that programme through the summer. We've got quite a lot of events lined up and opportunities for girls to come in and not only race with us on the water, but also be in the coach boat and also help on the shore side. So, great platform again to get to learn sort of a small keel boat with a complicated rig and get to sail with all different girls.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, we also know that there's the 6 metre Worlds that are coming up in September in Vancouver, and there's a movement there for a women's team, which is also great, not only for those people that are really at that level wanting to race, but I think there's also been an approach to the Magenta project to bring in some younger girls and give them an opportunity to experience sailing on that particular boat.
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing. In the last few months, we've started to have people write in saying, actually, I've got a boat that you could use and you can race, and that's great for us because a big problem, especially on the keel boats, I think, is that if girls do manage to get a spot on there, it's normally quite a small role, and so getting the chance to actually take over and managing a boat means we can get a lot more girls on and in those kind of prominent roles. So yeah, the 6 metres is going to be a lot of fun.
Sticking with keel boats, I thought we'd just talk about the Volvo Ocean Race, the start of which is coming up this year in October out of Alicante. Jo, I understand that Volvo is a particular goal for you. I wanted to see what your thoughts were with regards to the new crew rulings.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of been following the Volvo, what was the Whitbread, since I was young, and it's always been one of those things I've wanted to try to get into. And I guess the nice thing about this new crew ruling is that it looks like for the first time it's a lot more possible, that teams hopefully will be taking women, I think is a great step. It's a bit two-sided. You'd sort of prefer them to take women because they want to, not because it's almost forced upon them. But, we need some way to get girls into the race and, consistently have females in the race. So I'm really pro the idea. Obviously, I still think the idea of, having more women in the race is good, but I do worry a bit that in these teams, if there's two girls, you're not getting to do any real roles, or I'm not really sure what you're able to do on the boat or how much the guys are going to let you learn. So I'm still, really interested to see how it goes, but hoping it does make some positive change.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dongfeng have certainly led the way with the announcement of their two female crew members, Carolyn Brower and Marie Ryu. So I think they've definitely set the precedent, and it will be really interesting to see how it unfolds over the following months. Annie, I was going to ask you, having competed with Team SCA and that was your first time competing in the Volvo Ocean Race, with this new crew ruling, if you could put a team together for the upcoming race, and if you take money out of the equation, I wanted to see what your crew split would be if you were putting together a team and taking into account perhaps the winning and also the opportunities. What would your team look like?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Actually, Joe and I have been discussing that a bit. I think my initial thought would be to try a 50-50 because with the new crew rules, that actually gives you the most number of people, bar being an all-female team, so you get 10. So I think that could be a big advantage. And I think that would be a very strong team. But I suppose another idea would be to a lot of the teams, I think, will be taking 7 guys and 2 girls. So it'd be quite interesting to have a team that sort of flipped that on its head and took 7 girls and 2 guys. The reason being because something we lacked in Team SCA was really just the experience. So, we often said it would be great if we just had a couple of people there who'd done a few laps, and we didn't have, very much recent experience. So maybe if you could add 2 guys in, not because they're guys, just because there'd be 2 people who'd done a lot of races, that you could bring in that experience while still keeping a majority of women, so that they would be doing the dominant roles of driving, learning to drive and navigating and all the kind of lead roles. Otherwise, like Joe, I have a bit of a fear that they'll end up not taking on some of those big roles. And, as you know, Abby, you just need hours of doing it to get better at it.
No, I agree. I think it's very much about having the opportunity and then being able to maximize that opportunity once you're there. And I think to me, it's not just about this race, but it's about what happens in the future. That's going to be the important step is how this continues, how women gain that experience so that they do build up the miles, build up the experience, and what will the landscape look like in the next edition beyond this of the Volvo Ocean Race. So it's going to be very interesting to see what takes place over the next few months and years to come. I think that concludes today's show. I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and please continue to follow the Magenta project on our website and on social media. If you look for the tag The Magenta Proj, you can follow and keep up to date with all of our activities and events. If you wanted to keep up to date with women's sport in general, not just sailing, then check out WISP Sport on their website and through their social media channels. Join us again next month for another episode of The Sailing Show, when we hope to update you on the Figaro single-handed sailing, on the activities at Foiling Week, and other events within Women in Sailing.